Okay, so to start off, you should have 4 coloured paints in your box, and then you have to mix a couple of squeezes of paint with some dish soap, and then I would add the water after the dish soap, just because sometimes it gets a little too bubbly, or the colour doesn't come through properly from the paint in a pigmented way. So I would add the dish soap first and then add as much water as you need to. You also have straws which you can use, so all you're going to have to do is create some bubbles by blowing into the... You will see a bit of a disaster I had before, but I'm going to try again. So blowing some bubbles and mixing and then blowing the bubbles, and then you will place the piece of paper on top, and it should create a nice colourful bubble pattern. So for this one, for the junior video, I sort of just did the bubbles in a really random way, but on this video I'm doing it in a more specific kind of way. So I'm looking to create more of a picture with, or painting with, the bubbles. So I'm looking to sort of make a flower design. So you will see me in a minute sort of trying to create the different petals and areas. So what I did was I wanted one of the flowers to be red, and I did another one yellow, and then I sort of did some green on there, and I sort of like planning out where the leaves would be, so I put green on those bits, and you'll see I use different techniques of the bubble painting to do that. So here is my first attempt. It took a while, I'm not going to lie, it was quite hard, but a tip I have is to blow into the bubble liquid mixture with the paint directly, and make sure you don't suck it in, obviously, to make sure you don't get any paint in your mouth, but you need to keep on, you have to blow quite hard through the straw, but eventually it'll work. As you see, it gets quite messy, so I would recommend to put something underneath or do it outside, but beware, if it's a bit windy outside, the bubbles might blow out. So as you can see, I'm sort of creating the bubbles. Depending on the size of the bubbles and the type of the bubble and how much paint is in it, the bubble that you put on the page will look different. And also it makes a difference depending on how much pressure you put on the page. I also use sort of the bubbles off the side to create a different kind of pattern. So you can keep layering the bubbles as much as you want. It depends what kind of pattern you want, what kind of drawing or painting you're trying to create. It's up to you. You'll see on the different videos I've done for bubble painting, they'll look really different and each piece will look unique, so that's really nice. But if you want to layer different colours, that's absolutely up to you. So sometimes it comes through really light, and sometimes you have to remix the mixture to make sure that the paint is all getting to the top and it's not stuck at the bottom. Here I am using my straw to sort of mix around the paint a little bit, which I think is quite fun. So there's loads of different ways that you can use the straw. And then here I am trying a technique where I blow the bubbles over the edge, which kind of worked. Not really, but I tried. But there's so many different ways you can use the bubbles. You can put them on the page like that. You can use your straw and splatter the bubbles and the paint onto the page. You can move around the page so the bubbles move around with the liquid. There's all kinds of stuff you can do. Those bubbles are pretty big actually. I'm quite impressed with those ones. But yeah, so sometimes the bubbles can come through clear, so you just need to make sure you're mixing the mixture and just keep going with it and see what you create. You'll see in a minute I do some different ones which I'll show you. Oh yeah, I tried to do 2 at a time, which was interesting. So it's up to you how you use it. So for this activity, as I said, I'm going to try and create sort of a flower design. So I would say to go with one colour at a time, just because it's easier to sort of control where the colour goes and the picture you're trying to create, but it's completely up to you whether you do it all at once. It's quite a relaxing activity because it takes quite a while and it's quite a mindful activity, I would say. Even though I was a bit stressed when I was doing it because it wasn't going too well at one point. And it's quite messy, as I said, so make sure you wash your hands afterwards. So here I am sort of, if you can see, the red and yellow parts were the flowers, and then I was sort of trying to start creating the stems and the leaves with the green, and I was using the straw to sort of push around the paint on the page. It's quite a fun way of doing it. And as you can see, the bubbles are different sizes, different shapes, and sort of even the ones that are the same colour, they're all different shades of the red or the yellow or the green. I also really like the effect where like the little dots of paint come out from when you're blowing the bubbles and when you pop them. I actually try to create more of those because I like that effect, but that's completely up to you. So then I went in with some blue just because I kind of wanted purpley flowers. And also I like layering all the different colours. So I'm just pushing the paint around with my straw. And I think it looks like a really nice organic way of doing it because it sort of goes, you can't really know which way it's going to go and how it's going to turn out, which I really like. So this is my final piece for that. It doesn't really look like flowers right now, but you will see how I sort of transform it with a marker pen. So that's that. And then I also did a underwater scene, which you will see in a minute. So for this one, this is more of the underwater scene. So I went in with the blues. Yeah, this one's a bit of an odd technique. You don't have to do it like that. But I just wanted to sort of create a base, so I overflowed some of the bubbles onto the page and moved them around a bit. But what I got from that was I got the little ones and put them on the side, and I think that created a really nice texture. I definitely think this technique really works for doing under the water scenes and maybe beachy scenes because obviously sort of gives it that bubbly underwater vibe. So if you have a blue or any other colour, definitely try that out. So I'm going to go in with the green as well. The yellow, to make green. So I do the same sort of thing, push around the paint, and it obviously makes green and mixes together, but I really like the way it's sort of layering and creating different tones of the colours. Sometimes when you leave the bubbles on there without popping them, they sort of dry in that way, which you'll see they sort of dry with a pattern, which I also really, really like. So I tried to keep some of those on there. Also, you don't have to cover the whole page, it's completely up to you. But I quite like it when there's bits of the page left that aren't painted or have colour on them. As you can see, it's still very messy. So I tried doing the bubble painting again, the usual technique. Didn't really work on that one. But then I sort of decided I like the circular feel. So I actually went in a minute with one of my cups and sort of recreated that circle that I just created, but in more of a purposeful way. Just carrying on with the straw. So as I said, I went in with the cup. Multi-purpose, I'm telling you. So you've used the cup for the holding the paint, but you can also use it to print, which I also really liked. So that created some texture in my piece, and it also mixed around the bubbles a bit and created my final piece, which you'll see in a minute. I wasn't too sure how this was going to turn out, but as you'll see, it turns out really nicely. So this is my final piece for the flowers. I'm really happy with it and how it turned out. And then you can see, I accidentally didn't film that bit, but you can see me doing the underwater scene. You can see that the way that the bubbles have dried, and I really like how there's darker areas and lighter areas of the blue. So I've gone in and created some bubbles with some marker pens. I'd say out of all of these, this is definitely my favourite piece because I think it has a really nice texture, and although it doesn't necessarily look like typical bubble paintings, I really like the way it turned out and created different shapes and textures, especially the way that I used the cup. So I'm doing a little starfish here. This was actually a really calm activity to do. I liked doing this bit. I don't know if it was the blue, it was quite a calm colour, but also I really like drawing, so this was a really fun bit to do. And I think drawing on top of what you've already made is always really fun. So I'm going to do a fish. You can obviously draw whatever you want, but I went for an under the water theme. So I did a little fish, I did a starfish, and then I was going to I went for a jellyfish, another of my favourite under the water animals. So I went for that, and to be honest, I could have used a lot of different colours on this, but I felt like with the background there was already a lot of colours involved, so I went for the black marker pen, which I thought looked really nice and defined my drawing. And then I also went in with the white marker pen, but that's just because I like outlining things. So then I went in for another fish, but a different kind of fish. And I kind of wanted to add some colour, so I went for a dark orange on this one, which you'll see. I think orange and blue always work really nicely together. Contrasting colours. So I went in with the orange Sharpie and coloured that in. And I think definitely keeping drawing if you enjoy it and if you find it calming as a mindful activity to do when you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed, is a really nice way of sort of taking some time for yourself, and this is definitely what this was for me that day. So I just drew things out my head, but you can always Google pictures if you have access to Google, and you can look up pictures, or you can use reference photos to help you, but I just like doing it from my head sometimes. It's good fun. And then I went for a seahorse because I also like that animal. So this, you could make it into a card like I did in the Junie video, or you could stick it up on your wall if you can, or you can just keep it as a piece of art. You could give it to someone. It's completely up to you what you do with your piece. I just think making it into a piece of art is also a really fun way to sort of take the task a little bit further. So I added some orange onto the starfish as well. And I know that the orange doesn't come out clearly because it's obviously on top of the bubble painting, but I kind of like that because it gives a bit of character and adds different shades. Add some more white marker pen. And I think I'm going to add one more shell, which you can't quite see, but I'm adding a shell at the bottom. So this is basically my final piece. I think I'm adding another shell at the bottom and some... Oh yeah, I'm adding some seaweed, I forgot about that. Oh, I'm adding a shell now. Yeah, I added seaweed on the other side. And then I did some shells, just because I thought it looked nice. And then I'm nearly finished. So that is my final piece. So I would love to see your different final pieces. Obviously, I did an under the water and flower theme. You can do something similar. You could do something similar, or you... my dog's in the background. Or you could do something completely different. And I would love to see the things that you create. So those are my two pieces that I did with the bubble painting. I would love to see your designs. So if you could send them in, if you'd like to my dog's in the background, mary@campmorty.com, or you can tag us on Instagram @campmorty by posting a photo and tagging us in it, and we can all share our different designs that we've done. I think bubble painting is so much fun, and I hope you've had fun doing it today. I hope you have a lovely rest of the day, and I will see you in the next video.